everybody to either turn off their mobile phones or please put them on silent for the duration of the meeting. And can I ask that members and those presenting reports use the microphones? And finally, as last time, the meeting is going to be filmed by officers from the Combined Authority and available on the Knowsley Council YouTube channel later today, I'm told. So that's just for information. Okay, so straight into the agenda. Item 1 is apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, Angela?
Chair, we received apologies from Councillor Dowd, and Councillor Mann is here in place of Councillor Dowd.
Welcome here. Okay. Right, on to item 2, declarations of interest. Can I ask, have any declarations of interest been received?
No received.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 are the minutes of the last meeting held on the 19th of September. Pages 1 to 8 of your agenda pack. Can I ask, are these approved as a correct record of the meeting? Agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 4, One North October update. This is our first substantive item, and I'm going to ask David Brown to speak to this. David.
Thank you, Chair. This is to update members with progress on the One North developments. You'll recall that after the publication of the High Speed 2 report earlier this year, authorities in the North came together to publish a report earlier in the summer, which highlighted the importance of improved connectivity between the core city regions of the North of England. That report was published and was then well received by both the technical and general media. Follow-on work is now in commission, predominantly by the 5 core city regions in the North of England together with Hull, to look at further progressing that work. There are 3 work streams, as highlighted in section 4.2. The first is identifying further the economic case for improved strategic transport connections on an east-west basis. 2 is highlighting a high-level infrastructure investment programme of interventions that could improve that connectivity between those core city regions. And then the third is identifying what the economic outputs of that investment framework would be. That work is ongoing. There's a very significant pressure on time. The intention is to get that report concluded by the end of October, so that it can input into the Northern Economic Summit chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister that's ongoing at the moment. Also can influence the spending review due for the 3rd of December, as well as being able to influence and build support for any investment by any future government. As highlighted in section 4.7, there are a number of interventions that we're pressing forward on behalf of the Liverpool City region. And just for clarity, we are looking at a multimodal access to the Port of Liverpool and not focusing on any one individual mode. So that's just a slight correction to the wording of the report. We are making progress in getting the Liverpool City region interventions within the investment programme, and there is a members sign-off meeting later this month before the report is concluded. We'll be able to bring back the final report to members at the next meeting for your information. We will circulate around the finalised version as it comes available at the end of October. The recommendations to endorse the importance of the improvements of east-west connectivity and linking the Liverpool City region to the other city regions in the north, and also agree and support the work that officers and members are doing in conjunction with this work.
Thank you, David. Comments, questions? Joe?
Yeah, the report that we're going to be presenting, the One North proposals, I'm concerned on a couple of points. One, because we're not making the case strong enough for HS2. And 2, that I'm concerned that the report is going to be more focused on Manchester Leeds, part of the West-East connection. And I want to ensure that we absolutely strongly make the case that we are in Liverpool, the Liverpool City region is absolutely at pivot in that report in terms of its connectivity. So I've already raised issues on this myself personally. I want to see the draft report before it gets submitted, and I suggest that the Combined Authority also make the same case, that we want to see the draft before we approve it or agree it. The point in 4.7 where we talk about those particular issues, can I just make the case that it should be, in our submission, made quite clear, yes, we are looking at multimodal responses to get the freight from Superport, but we need to make the case in there that if we get HS2 in, that in itself releases capacity because of the freight, and that then eases the congestion and it eases the pressures on us in the other modal forms of transport. And we have to make that case. We also have to make the case that not only is that a powerful statement and a powerful argument, but the Treasury needs to look in advance. If in 2025, 2030, the freight increase is going to be 300, 400% compared to what it is today, that we are going to have to get access from the Port of Liverpool out into the rest of the north of the country. And in order to do that, there would have to be investment in, for instance, the M6, otherwise it'll end up like a car park, and the M62, and therefore the economic case is strengthened for Liverpool to get that spare into the city to release that freight capacity. So we need to emphasise that within the report. I'm not comfortable with just those comments, the 4 points under 4.7. We have to emphasise the HS2 spare and connection into Liverpool, because that in itself will help in the other modes of transport, and I just want to raise that. Plus, I do think that from the combined authority, there needs to be a letter immediately sent off to say that we will only endorse the report once we're satisfied with the connectivity argument in it, and that we demand to see it before it's sent anyway. I've made that case, and I think the combined authority should.
David, do you want to respond to that?
No, 4.7 is a summary, but clearly the points that the Mayor's making have been put forward as part of the One North proposition, but I'm quite happy to extract a report or a letter to go from the combined authority, particularly around One North, stressing the importance of Liverpool.
Okay. 4.7 sets out what you intend to argue. What I'm suggesting is that is not good enough, it's not strong enough. There needs to be a real emphasis on the HS2, but the points I've just made, that in itself releases the if you like, the desire or the need or the agency to have other modes. If you get HS2, that in itself frees up that argument. It's got to be in there, it's got to be in our submission. Higgins needs to see that in order so that influences the decision makers, the Chancellor, when he makes his autumn statement. It's absolutely crucial that we get those points in it now, David. That is too wishy-washy, 4.7. It needs to be emphasised in our submission, and I'd like to see that before it goes. It needs to be really strong and powerful.
Okay. Robert.
Just building on Joe's point there, I think the argument for a direct link very just to Liverpool releases capacity on the West Coast main line. Great. In a sentence, the point made to Baroness Kramer in the meeting this week, as you know, Chair, with colleagues, Liam and Councillor Robinson was also there. We all made that strong point, but I do think this freight study, which actually nails the point I've just made there, which they need greater capacity, capacity on the West Coast main line, that we freed up by the direct link into Liverpool. And we need to have that properly understood by Guildport particularly, and the freight study. I think that then informs the point we're now making. We're making the point strongly. The evidence backing for that, I think, should come probably from the ports industry, the freight industry. But without that, we need to have special arguments now which deliver the need for the direct link to Liverpool. We can show the beneficial economic links and benefits coming out of that direct link. But I think to show that the national and northern links there, in terms of freight, is absolutely essential. And that really is built around this trade need and the need to free capacity on the West Coast main line, and that in turn justifies that direct link to Liverpool and HS2. But I think those points can be made there. I think we've all, I've not seen the draft report. It would be awful to see it too late, and therefore to understand if it's emphasising and giving dominance to Manchester and Liverpool and Leeds, that would be inappropriate. I think not in line with our current thinking.
That's a fair point.
I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that we did make these points very strongly to Baroness Kramer, the Minister of Transport, didn't we, on Wednesday of this week when we met her with Liam and Church as he travelled. And I think she confirmed that Higgins had seen the economic benefits report that we did for the benefits of the direct link into the city centre. And we're going to be working very closely with her civil service team now to continue to make that case. Liam, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, more than happy to. I think it's fair to say yes, it was a very productive meeting, and what was quite pleasing to hear was a lot of the work that we've submitted. She said is some of the best that she's seen and some of the best that the departments have seen. So the actual economic case we're putting forward is extremely strong, but we all know that it is very, very compelling. I think the most important stage is really about how we continue that close working with her and her department going forward, actually to make sure we develop it even further, to make sure that we can develop it into a reality. And obviously part of that as well is how we further popularise the campaign that's being led as well, and making sure that the kind of prominence of the issue really is continued to be as high as possible. So it's something that decision makers, as Joe alluded to, like the Chancellor, aren't able to ignore. So a good and positive stage in terms of the meeting, but there are obviously more detailed things we need to crack on with as well.
Yeah, Ian. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. It's the same stuff really, but on 4.7, when it's been mentioned that the D is changed to improve multimodal access, it strengthens the point. I think it's a really important issue. The 5036 will and cannot be able to cope with what's going to be happening, and rail is going to be a really important part of the solution to the problem. And changing that to multimodal really strengthens the arguments that we've just been listening to about the freight improvements, etc. And also puts that on the table that that isn't and cannot be the only answer.
Joe?
Yeah, one more comments. I mean, obviously I wasn't at the meeting about this Kramer, but I've heard the comments before the meeting, and it's since, I'm not as positive about that meeting as I'm encouraged to be. The reason why is that she's made it absolutely clear since that meeting that in her view, the fact that cities are connected, irrespective of whether it's a high-speed link to it, is good enough. That's her view. Her view is that Liverpool will be connected to HS2 even if it in its high-speed mode stops at Crewe. That's her view, and it's a difficult point that we have to convince not just her, because she's just the front of it, but it's the Whitehall officials behind there. That's my point about the politics of this, and the argument of this has to be won because of the points that we've just made. She is not, in my view, anywhere near as positive, and it's caught up in the politics. We've got to remember that. We've got an election that's 7 months away, and no one wants to commit themselves to anything, and that's why we've got to make sure that we bash home the case that it benefits the country, it benefits the city region and the whole North-West, and that's why it's important that we get this embedded in that One North proposal that goes to the Chancellor, and it highlights the economic benefits, not just for the Liverpool city region, North-West, but for the UK. And Mann Island, with the greatest respect to her, it is not going to be the one who makes that decision. It's going to be the Conservatives, or it's going to be Labour that make that decision on what we've got to do. We've got to focus on that, convincing the people with the real power, who have got the financial clout to make that decision. We've got to convince them. So, I'm not convinced that Mann Island is listening to our arguments, to be frank. Okay, well, I mean, I think David, you've got the message in terms of where the emphasis needs to be, and we need to keep the pressure up on all of these fronts. So, unless there are any other comments, I'm going to ask us to agree the recommendations in section 2 with those additional points that colleagues have made. Can we agree that? Okay, thanks. Okay, that takes us then on to item 5, the rail devolution update. And David, can you take us through this, please?
Rail devolution, this is related to not infrastructure, but related to train services that are provided by Northern and TransPennine. They're under a franchise which expires in February 2016, and the new franchises are due to be put in place from that point forward for between 7 and 10 years. Members will be reacquainted with the paper we did previously, which looks at how the north of England can have a greater role in those franchises which are currently led by the Secretary of State. There are 3 pieces of work that have been ongoing. The first is the governance of how Rail North, which is the working title for the local transport authorities in the north. So there are 30 local transport authorities that have actually come together, created an association, and have now got an incorporated company called Rail North Limited, and that will represent, on a proportionate basis, all of the 30 local transport authorities. And Councillor Robinson is the representative on that body from the Liverpool City region. By the end of this calendar year, that whole pan-northern Rail North organisation will be in place, and all of the local transport authorities will have indicated and joined that body. So we have a political governance structure which gives us 11 leaders for elected mayors as the political oversight body. The second element is the partnership agreement with the Department for Transport. We have a memorandum of understanding which has been signed by both Rail North and Secretary of State, which indicates that from February 2016, the Northern and Transpennine franchises will be commercially managed by Rail North in the north of England, so moving that out of Westminster to the north of England. And the partnership agreement has a legally binding underpinning nature, which, if Rail North can prove its capability and capacity during the franchise period, could take a greater responsibility for future franchises moving forward. So it's a significant step in devolution of the ability to manage the next franchises accordingly. The third element is the specification, so the content of those franchises for both Transpennine and Northern. And the shortlist is a bit as highlighted in section 3.9, and the formal procurement process is due to start in December, where the specifications for those franchises will be made public. We've been working very closely with the Department for Transport in making sure that the economic importance of trains in the north of England has been reflected in those specifications. And I believe that we've had a very positive influence on that specification, and really stressing the economic importance of good rail services into and out of the northern cities and towns. So the specification is due to be completed and published in the middle of December, when the formal procurement process will take place. And we've highlighted in the report some of the issues that have been raised relating to ticketing and fares, and particular emphasis around investment in rolling stock. So investment in rolling stock on northern trains on the City line for the Liverpool City region, but also across Manchester and Leeds is actually very important. So we've made those points. We believe that they will be encapsulated in the specification, and we believe that Rail North, both now but also in its formally incorporated position, will continue to have a greater role in those rail services and influencing the specification as they come forward. So we're looking for members to endorse that work, but also support the continued development of that work, and continue to stress politically the importance of investment in things like rolling stock on local rail services in the north of England.
Thanks, David. Comments, questions? Robert?
Thank you. Yeah, just a brief one, David. Actually, we, within the Local Enterprise Partnership, are being lobbied by various current franchise holders. Do you have any direction to give us in response to those inquiries?
Yeah, I've produced a brief note which summarises all of the requirements that we believe we've got from our long-term rail strategy for those services. That will be out by the beginning of next week. We'll send that to all stakeholders, because you will all of these bidders will try and see all of the local authorities, local enterprise partners, etc. So we've produced a very brief summary of the key things that we believe that are important to the Liverpool City region, which will come out at the beginning of next week, so that you can then use that in any discussions you wish to hold.
Any other points? No. I mean, can I just say, I think this piece of work looks as though it's making good progress. I think this model is possibly a good model for devolution in other policy areas, which needs to be looked at in the context of the debate that is going on at the moment. And I think from looking at the progress that's been made, we are likely to have a much greater say over the specification for these services, which hopefully will benefit our city region and the other city regions in the partnership. So I'd be really asking colleagues, can we agree recommendations on page 13, section 2? They agree? Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us on to item 6, which is the Freight and Logistics Hub update. Jed?
Thank you, Chair. This report just updates on the outcome of the City Region Growth Deal and reports the success of a number of projects set out in Section 5 of that report, and highlights also in Section 4 the potential importance and impact of the freight and logistics hub, which picks up many of the points that were made earlier in the meeting, Chair. I should just point out a typo on 2.1 little b. Should of course refer to multimodal rather than multi-modal. But the last line of that just to prove I've read the report. And happy to answer any questions or take any comments, Chair.
Okay, Robert? Yeah. And then Joe. Robert first.
Just raising a question, which I just see this late last night actually, therefore, if my construction is wrong, then correct me immediately. But on page 21, Jed, it's 16.6, should that read 14.4 million? In relation, but I just cross-referenced that to page 25 actually, and it was interchanged. The government investment grant is 14.4. Apologies for raising this late, but it was very late when I picked this up last night. That would appear to be numbers representing the government investment in that table.
Yeah, I can't make sense of the figures now, but I look at the box on page 25. If we add those two figures together, the theory should come to 16.6, and it doesn't. So,
sorry, my point was Uni Willows. I think the table on page 21 is the government investment number, 5.64 million, and for Uni Willows it would be 14.4. That's a simple point, actually.
If that's the logic of what's suggested. All I'm saying is that I can't now reconcile the figure where it's absolutely just on a drift. So I'll come back to you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to raise it late. It's a genuine later on my part. More substantively, just to make the point that obviously transport and logistics is an important sector in its own right in employment, but more than that, it drives economic growth across the city region. It's vital for us all to see that in the best possible way. In that context, these delivery schemes are vital, and the structures to put in place to make sure they happen is equally important. That will be an important discussion item at our Liverpool meeting next week. I just want to emphasise delivery of these schemes is important to identify them in the first place, and that's something we must look to do and put the resources in place for that to happen. The LEP will play its own part in ensuring those structures are in place as far as it can. It does need the city region participation to make sure the overall structures are there and these schemes happen on time to deliver the growth that we need for that sector and the wider economy. Thank you.
Jed, do you want to respond to that? Or?
No, it's self-evident, Chair. The interrelationship between the transport schemes that's set out in Section 5 and economic growth in the way that Robert was describing, absolutely fundamentally important. The strength of the business cases that we need to submit for this funding through sales into government from December onwards, I think will demonstrate that particular issue. And then, of course, it's down to delivery as soon as we can delivery on the ground.
Joe?
I just would suggest an item of another bullet point on the recommendations to include move G to H and include in those bullet points a reference to HS2 and logistics in terms of simply because it's the most important element of the future for the city region in regard to freight and transport, and every opportunity we get to make that case and strengthen that argument should be taken, because clearly it's going to help with the movement of freight, and so that investment's fine. But I think in there we need to, and also it's about the investment that we've got, the growth deal that we've got, but it needs to emphasise that point that every opportunity we've got, we should use that case.
Yeah, I'm sure we can all agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Any other points? No? Okay, so you've got the recommendations in front of you on page 19, paragraph 2.1. Joe's suggested that additional recommendation, which I think is fine. So can we agree those recommendations? Okay, thank you. Right, okay, that takes us on then to item number 7, which is the Liverpool City Region Rural Development Programme 2014 to 2020. And Mike Palin, where are you, Mike, over there? Mike, you're going to introduce this, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As members are aware, the LEP leads on economic development matters for the combined authority. and also has responsibility given to it by government for the development of the European programme. That programme will be in excess of £190 million between 2014 and 2020, and a relatively small element of that programme is dedicated to rural programme investments. Working with all partners, including the local action group for the current rural programme and also local authorities, the LEP has developed a strategy to apply those funding in the relevant funding in the city region, and this has been endorsed by the European Subcommittee and also the LEP board. However, to enable delivery of the programme, the city region needs to appoint an accountable body for the funding, and in line with the protocols agreed at the formation of the combined authority, we're now asking the combined authority to take on that role. For background, the previous rural programme supported over 150 businesses and created over 100 jobs in the city region. There are two elements to the funding programme, and in total they add up to 1.8 million, and we're suggesting that they are delivered together to improve efficiency going forward. And how that money will be deployed, or the focus of activity areas, is outlined in the paragraph 6.3, page 29. If it is agreed that the CA will become the accountable body, then we'll then start designing delivery structures ready for the summer of 2015 when the programme kicks in. Members are therefore asked to endorse the Mersey Rural Leader Programme and also to agree to the combined authority acting as the accountable body going forward.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any comments on this report? I mean, I think it's just worth noting, that agriculture does contribute quite an important element to the city region, 30 million to our local economy. So this programme is going to be important as part of the new European programme, whenever that's actually finally agreed, probably not till next year going forward. So we're just being asked to endorse the Leader programme 2014 to 20, and for the combined authority to act as the accountable body for this programme going forward. Can we agree those recommendations? They agree? Thank you. Okay, that takes us on to item 8, the Liverpool City Region Draft Enterprise Strategy Framework. I'm delighted that Mark Pasnett from the LEP is here to take us through this. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Chair. The background to this paper is based on the collective desire of local authorities, the LEP, chambers and others to work as effectively as possible together to address the economic challenges and opportunities, particularly in relation to business growth and enterprise that the city region faces. It's been well rehearsed in a number of fora, some of those issues, typically around our business density shortfall, which is much less than the UK average, low levels of female entrepreneurship, and over-dependence in some areas on local and regional markets that need to externalise our businesses as much as possible, and some other causes of that. So we know there are a number of challenges there, and we're all collectively of a mind to address that. But there are also opportunities, as we know the economy's been growing the last 5 years above the UK average, which is very encouraging. The challenge is, how do we tackle this long-term structural issue in an effective way? The purpose of the paper, Chair, is to set forward a draft enterprise strategy that tries to look across the piece at the factors affecting and impacting on those issues, and looking at systematically trying to address those through a number of interventions over what effectively will need to be a long-term commitment to that agenda. So the document sets out in the appendix a fairly simple but draft framework on which we're looking to work with our local authority colleagues and others to work up the detail of that into a strategy and effectively implementation programme that will address each of those issues. This has been through the LEP board and through the Business Growth Hub board with local authority and chamber and other inputs into it already. Since that's happened and until it comes to this chamber, the LEP and others have been making progress in a number of fronts in trying to drive forward the establishment of the Growth Hub, launching new markets programme. A number of actions have already been progressed, but we're looking for the endorsement of the combined authority to work on effectively further development of this strategy over the coming months, working closely with the lab.
Thanks, Mark. Comments, questions on this course? Robert?
Just a couple of comments, Chair, please. Self-evidently, jobs are needed, but jobs are driven through businesses, and therefore the creation of 18,000 businesses is at the heart of this paper, and that's what we're seeking to achieve. That's the first self-evident point. Secondly, I think that more acutely is the fact that when we let the board discuss this, there was a clear opinion that there's been a desire to avoid complication and duplication in business support in the city region. This is a very important first step. It is only the first step. It needs to be accelerated. Every month that goes past it is a lost opportunity, and therefore I hope this can be the start of a quick process to define something which puts the client first. So aptly put, if I might say, Mark, in your paper here, that shines through all the time thinking what's the customer need. And I think it is the lack of complication and the lack of duplication. Just one specific point on 5.1, first bullet point, that advice finder facility, tool devised by the lab through the hub board is something which has gone down very well indeed. If that facility could be made clear to partners within their own particular areas and encourage businesses to enrol and make use of advice finder opportunities, then that would be, I think, helpful to all concerned. Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, can I just make the point on the grids that we're using? On Improve Enterprise and Culture, it's got a section in there about schools and colleges, and it's obviously clearly intended to improve enterprise culture within schools, and I think that's important. But I think if we look at the workforce development, it clearly needs to be that connection there between education as well, in terms of looking at the skills and the growth areas that we know of, and how we encourage schools to motivate students across the age range from 9 through to 6th form out to participate in that, and look where the skills gaps are as well. I think we never use our intelligence in a way that encourages schools to develop that. And I think if we're bringing together the head teachers from across the city, needing connections, the trainer providers, and others to address the issue of business enterprise and business culture, I think we also have to look at that skills issue and that skills gap to get more, if you like, dialogue and synergy between schools, businesses, and what's getting developed within the region in terms of opportunities. So I think that grid, there needs to be an additional section in the workforce development that clearly underpins that point about schools and development.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point that's been made many times, and I think it impinges partly on the next item around some of the lessons from the skills show, which we'll come on to in a minute. But yeah, okay, good points. Any other comments, Robert?
Can I just ask Mark one question, Chair? Mark, in practice, what would you like to see happen now? This is, I think, a very useful paper. The positions as well indicates that the immediate way forward. But in practice, if I might ask, what do you think would be helpful?
Thanks, Chair. It's pretty simple. I think we need the active engagement of those local authority officers, particularly whose responsibilities cover this area, so that we can use their intelligence, their connections, know-how to join these things together. I think we have people who know what to do in this space. We need to join it together better. So the making available of those people to work collectively on this agenda would be very helpful, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask a similar question. I think we probably need to, I think we need to propose some kind of deadline, because we just need to make a decision on this, because it has been, this draft strategy has been kind of in the pipeline for a while now, so it would be good to bring it to fruition with a clear kind of decision about when we're actually going to finalise this model.
If I may, Chair, I think it would be helpful if we can have that input from all the local authority partners at an officer level in each of those areas, and a commitment to work to find collective solutions in the developing of the detailed implementation of this. That would be very helpful.
Would it be I mean, I'm sure all colleagues would be happy for our officers to lend that lend that support, but I just think it's maybe something that the chief execs might want to have on their next agenda, just to bring this to a conclusion, because we've been talking about it for so long. Jed, I don't know if you want to pick up on it.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Through the Regen Directors group of Chair, and then to the chief execs, we'd be more than happy to take that into those discussions and provide the clarification and the commitment and engagement that Mark was looking for. They're already aware of it. It's just a question of trying to kind of just nudge it forward, I think, in the direction that was suggested.
Okay, so and I think that's important, that next step. With those comments, can I ask, can we agree the recommendations on page 33, 2.1, is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us then to item 9, the skills show experience at the International Festival for Business. This was an event that I had the pleasure of formally opening. It was really good in June. And Sue, you're going to take us through this. Thanks. Sue Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. The report pulls together the key findings from the evaluation of the skills show that took place in June as part of the International Festival for Business events. The skills show itself was the largest of its type this year that's been held on the National Skills Show footing, apart from the NEC event, which will be taking place in November, so it was particularly good for this city region that we had something of this size. In terms of the event itself, we had over 3,500 young people from 55 schools across the Liverpool city region who attended over the 2-day period. And a key aim was to inspire future career choices by allowing young people to take part in a number of have-a-go practical experiences. And we had over 120 hands-on have-a-go experiences across the site. And the event allowed us to showcase a range of current and future careers opportunities, not only in the city region's key growth sector areas, but also in those sectors where we know there are high volumes of job opportunities available. Section 5 of the report sets out in a bit more detail some of the main findings from the evaluation, and we had over 460 young people who completed a questionnaire, and we also got feedback from teachers and training providers at the event. As part of the preparations for the event and during the event, we gave young people access to careers materials via the Apprentice Hub. And one of the questions we asked as part of the evaluation was how useful this information was. And paragraph 5.4 shows that 85% of young people said that they now know that their next steps in pursuing a career, they know what to do now as a result of attending the event. And we found that more than 70% of the young people replying to the survey said that they would now consider a vocational education or an apprenticeship route as an option. In terms of what we do moving forward, we've got 3 more smaller scale skills show events taking place over the next month in St Helens, in Liverpool City Centre, and also in Bootle. And we're also looking to explore opportunities to get future funding to hold a large-scale event again, maybe next year or in 2016. The other element that we need to do that sort of follows on from some of the conversations with the last item is very much how do we embed some of this within the schools. One of the recommendations to this report is about how we try and capture ongoing engagement with schools, and whether or not we ask for a key nominee from a governor, from a senior manager, from each school across the city region to liaise with the Employment Skills Board moving forward on matters such as this. What I've now got to show, if the technology is with us, is a 2-minute film that was made by some students who actually attended the skills show. And this is intended to give members a flavour of what this was about, so hopefully this will work. If it doesn't, we can show it at the end of the meeting for those members who want to see it.
it's not good. The technology's
This technology
beaten us, has it?
It's just a laptop.
What are we going to do? Show it at the end?
Show
Show it at the end. Okay. All right. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Sue. But it was a fantastic, it was a fantastic show, event. Okay. Really important item. Anybody want to raise comments, questions on this? I just got one, Sue. You're encouraging us as members of the Combined Authority to promote a lot of the information that you talked about within schools in our areas. What's the way, the mechanism for doing that?
One mechanism, Chair, if members agree, is we could have a letter coming from yourself that would go through to all of the heads and the governors asking that question. I think we also need to work quite closely with the Directors of Education in each of the local authorities, because there are local schools forums in each of the local authority areas, and to try and engage more broadly with the schools through that route. The other mechanism as part of this is to actually send through some of the materials that we've got, so that the film that you've not seen, we can send a link to that film to the schools, because it's much better to see it in practice than just have the words written down about this.
Yeah, Joe.
Can I just say that it'd be good if, for instance, you made contact with our director for education, because we've already got the Liverpool Schools Partnership in place through the Mayoral Commission on Education, and it's doing exactly this point around the encouraging and taking staff who are responsible for the schools to talk about working with businesses and stuff. So it'd either be good just to share that information before we duplicate what we've already doing. So I just make that point, if we communicate, it may well be good to just share what's going on and develop that further.
Other points? Robert?
I think I'm right in saying that some schools did not participate. Could they be written a special letter? I agree with the purpose of paragraph 12 of the report, to say that we should send the report and also send the film. But to those schools who didn't participate, to emphasise what they did miss. I think rather than giving them the standard letter, they should really come next time. It was inspiring, I attended, and they've lost a great opportunity. That should not happen again as far as they're concerned, and be brought out in their particular letters.
Sure, that's possible, Sue, is it? Yeah?
Yeah, happy to do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ian?
Thanks, Phil. It was mentioned in the Employment Skills Board when we saw this now, as well as head teachers, etc. We should really send this out to the chair of each governors of the schools, so that they get it as well as head teachers.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I think we can take that on board, can't we? Yeah, Ronnie.
Thanks, Phil. I think what we've got to understand here is the difficulty that we do have, particularly with heads of our senior schools, and actually preparing our young people for the world of work. We've got too many heads of schools over the years who've got a fixation that they are only there to educate our young people, not to prepare them for the world of work and their future adulthood. And that's one of the issues that we've really got to get over. Sure, the heads and the governing bodies within our schools, that they have a wider responsibility than just to educate our young people. For instance, not every young person, when they reach the age of 16, wants to go on to further education, or they don't want to go into universities. They want to go into the world of work, but when they get to the age of 16, they've had no preparation in their life from 14 to 16 to prepare them for the world of work, and that's an issue that we have to address as a combined authority collectively within the districts. And if we can get that message through to every school in the Liverpool City region and the heads and the government bodies, we could very well be on the right track to preparing our young people for the world of work. Thank you.
I think that's a really important point. Why the skills show was so good, I thought, was they had the employers there and have a go activities. You know, that the youngsters could actually have a go at some of the jobs that these employers do, and so it was much more real to the young people who were there than a careers talk in their school. So, but you make a really important point, I think. So anything we can do to get that message across, we should do. But I mean, I just thought the benefit of this kind of experience to the youngsters was fantastic, and I do support the idea of having mini skills shows and this kind of thing again in future years, because I thought it was really powerful. So do you want to respond to some of those issues?
Yeah, I mean, just to add, there was a real appetite from the young people who attended this, and it was really, I think for those of you who did attend, you can see that through, and I think we've got to continue and build on this now, because you can't just do this once, because it's that progression of young people coming through the system. I think once we do get the password for this, and you can see the film, you will really capture the spirit of what it was like. And I think also the opportunities in terms of the have a go and the competitions that the young people had as part of the lead up to the event was all really good, because it got, you know, it was led by young people rather than the adults and the people manning the stands that were there.
Yeah, Robert.
Yeah. It is the school's approach to it. The point that Councillor Brown is making is absolutely right there. It isn't just a question of educating children. It's understanding the opportunities that are open for them in their next stage of their careers. It's that point, actually. What next for them, and the practical steps they might take, and how to connect with opportunities within business and companies isn't more important as clearly as it might otherwise be. It's that issue, I believe. So the event was fine, but the way the schools behave, perhaps, and the way they educate and make clear what young people can do in their future lives in terms of work is vital, and that's the missing bit, I think, of the jigsaw to date.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. Sue, do you want to come back on that?
Just one final point on that. There is now an Ofsted regulation around how careers advice and guidance is used, so I think we need to, maybe as part of the letter, just emphasise back to schools that point, because it's in the interest of the schools to be doing this from an inspection perspective.
Okay, so there's another point. So we ask us if we can agree the recommendations on page 41, paragraph 2.1. I'd like to add my congratulations to all those involved in that skill show. I thought it was excellent. It's a shame that the film didn't work, but I want to just record our thanks to students from Southport College who put it together, and hopefully we can all get a chance to see it at some point. So can we agree those recommendations? I agree. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so that takes us on then to item number 10, updates on the development of the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority Scrutiny Panel. David Park, you're going to take us through this. Thanks, David.
Chair, there's nothing I really want to add to this report. It's just to remind the Combined Authority of the progress that we're making on the scrutiny arrangements. The scrutiny panel will meet for the first time formally on the 29th of October. It's already met informally in a development session to start developing the work and to start looking at the work programme, which will be developed further at that formal meeting on the 29th. That meeting will be here. So I'm happy to take any questions, but it's really just to keep the Combined Authority up to speed on progress.
Okay, any comments on this report? It's good to see that the scrutiny committee are actually now running, and obviously we look forward to working with them. So can we just we're just being asked to note the progress being made on this issue, item 2.1 on page 14. Can we agree that? Can we note that? Thank you. Okay, that just takes us on then to item 11, minutes of the Mersey Travel Committee held on the 2nd of October. Can I ask that these minutes are confirmed? Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 12, I've not been informed of any urgent items of business, so it just remains for me to thank everybody for their attendance and contribution to this meeting, and remind you the next meeting of the Combined Authority is at 11 AM on Friday, the 21st of November. So thank you very much for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.